Hello everybody. So it's election day here in Ontario, and I've referred to this election as being a nothing female bacon sandwich. So I can't say nothing poutine because that's more of a Canada thing or a Quebec thing. Nothing burger is an American thing. So it's a nothing female bacon sandwich. You just have the Kaiser roll. There's no female bacon in it. For those of you who don't know, female bacon, I think it's called back bacon elsewhere, and it's kind of in between a piece of ham and a piece of normal bacon. And in Ontario, you eat it on a Kaiser roll with mustard or ketchup or something. It's called pea meal because the block that you cut it off of is rolled in pea meal or ground peas. So that's kind of something, an Ontario specific food I came up with. But I think that's how I describe this election. This election has been uninteresting, unexciting, unengaging. No one's really cared. It's just kind of like the federal election in Canada, where we'd entered into the election with no real doubt as to how it was going to go, and nothing about it has changed that. My opinion since the start of this whole thing is that the Conservatives were just going to coast to another majority government and nothing interesting was really going to happen. And I've more or less been proven correct for that. Now, you can like or dislike Doug Ford, but when he came to power, there was this expectation that he was going to be this like far-right populist, maybe like a libertarian, that he was going to just totally gut government in Ontario. He was going to turn back. I call it the We Live in a Society platform of the McGuinty Wynne years. And really none of that happened. They did a couple token gestures, like the buck a beer. But by and large, it seems like mostly a continuation of the previous government. And to be fair to Ford, it's not like they really had much of an opportunity to do anything, as most of their term has been taken up by COVID. And the Ford government has, by most people I've talked to, they tend to think he did a pretty good job with COVID. Ontario had some of the strictest lockdowns in all of Canada. And very early on, Ford was very, what would be the term? Collegial with the federal government. Him and Trudeau, despite previously being mortal enemies, became BFFs. They worked very closely together. The Ford government took very strong position for the vaccine, for lockdowns, for all the other stuff. More so than a lot of other places in Canada. In particular, I think Toronto might have had the longest lockdowns of like anywhere on earth. In terms of a municipality. Someone can correct me on that, I might be wrong. But basically, the people who were super pro-lockdown, who tended to not vote Conservative, are largely okay with what Ford did. And the people who don't like Ford for what he did don't really have anywhere else to go if they want to have any kind of influence. So it's kind of what a lot of Conservative parties do in Canada, where they run basically to the center left, and they're like, anything, there's no one to the right of us who has any significant chance of winning, so you can let the far left win, or you can allow the center left that we represent to win. It is more or less how it is. And frankly, I really don't want to go back to this province being governed by the Liberals, so I was sorely tempted to vote PC. To just hold my nose, vote Progressive Conservative, be like, okay, it's going to suck, but it's not going to suck as much. Then I remembered that I had publicly promised you guys that I wasn't going to vote PC, so I didn't. So basically, the Ford government managed to take a lot of the center and even kind of, like I said, the center left. And they haven't really lost any of their support in terms of their overall percentage of the population. Now, what did happen is Ford kicked out a bunch of members of the party who were against lockdowns or who were against vaccine mandates. And they formed their own splinter parties. in typical like retarded right-wing fashion, we have two new parties to the right of the Conservative Party, the Ontario Party, which I guess isn't new, but it's become bigger when Derek Sloan joined it. And then we have the New Blue Party. So it's like, okay, so now we have these two protest vote parties that are somewhat similar. I think New Blue is more populist, and Ontario Party is more Christian and socially conservative. But they basically fulfill the same purpose as being disaffected PC voters. And they'll probably both get like an okay share of the vote for a minor party. They'll both probably get 2 or 3%. So instead of like pooling their resources, presenting like an opposition, like the Ontario Blue Party or the New Ontario Party or something, they decided to run separately and split their already minuscule share of the vote. So that was their genius plan. And I'd imagine a lot of those people were just not going to vote anyways. But because Ford's run as such a centrist government successfully, he doesn't really have to worry that much about losing some of who were considered to be his base. So we're heading into that. The other two parties, one of the things that Ford really took advantage of was the NDP kind of stopped being irrelevant and became a major force in the last election. In fact, they became the official opposition, and the Liberal Party basically got wiped out. So it looks like under another bland, ballless leader in Stephen Del Duca, the Liberals are going to make a slight comeback. All that's going to do, though, is just split the vote more. Because people who vote Liberal or who vote NDP are probably going to vote for the other. So Liberal votes mostly come from NDPers, and NDP votes mostly come from Liberals, although some will vote Conservative, but generally speaking, that's the way it tends to go. So if the Liberal Party manages to take back some of their vote, I forget what they got last time, but let's say previously they got like 10% of the vote, the NDP got like 25%, and the Liberals wind up getting 15 and the NDP 20, the PCs might actually pick up seats because the vote will be more split in a lot of key ridings, and they might manage to pick it up. That's generally speaking how Conservative parties win in Canada, is we have like 3 or 4 competitive left-wing parties: Liberals, NDP, Green Party. I don't know how you want to count the BQ, but they can count however you want them to count. But yeah, so the left-wing vote is split a couple different ways, and then you have the centrist, the center-left party, and the Conservatives, who take everything to the right of it and don't really have significant vote splitting. Or rather, they didn't prior to Bernier, but that's a tale for another time. So basically, Ford has not lost any of his support. There's going to be more vote splitting. It's probably just going to be another blowout. He's going to get another majority government. It might be slightly reduced, but it's just a waste of everybody's time. There was no real interesting issues that were discussed during this thing. I didn't really find any of them had like huge differences in terms of what their policies were. So it's just a nothing. I forget if I mentioned it earlier in this video because it's all blending together. I personally just voted for the Ontario Party because I wasn't going to vote PC. And I think they have like faith as one of their core virtues, and like respect for God's law. And that sounded kind of based. So I just went with that. I literally this time didn't decide who I was going to vote for until I was in the voting booth. I was like, am I going to really vote PC again? I'm like, nah, who cares? It's not going to matter anyways. And every vote for them probably makes someone seethe. It's not even like the PPC where they might have been able to win a vote. The New Blue and the Ontario Party, even if they pooled their votes, they wouldn't have gotten anything. And they probably They definitely won't, since they decided to split the vote, which is truly genius. So that's my last minute analysis. I'll be trying to do some coverage later tonight. Unfortunately, a job I applied for sent me this big assignment I have to write up. So we'll see how long I have to cover it. But we find out about elections pretty quick here. So God bless everybody. Talk to you later.